Hello, welcome to the Elevate Your Wellbeing podcast with myself, Rachael Wagstaffe. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, I wanted to dive into this. I heard my mentor share this just before I've sat down and batched a load of podcast episodes, and it was dealing with the cards you've been dealt. Dealing with the cards you've been dealt. Because I put up a few posts relatively recently on Facebook and was saying, like, I think the post was movement is key to feeling like your best self. You need to move. Your body, we're made to move. And someone that follows me on that particular Facebook page, she might even be listening, Lou, commented about how that's not possible for her. And I know if we were working one-on-one together as a coach, there would be a way that we could work together to create some form of movement. This person, I believe, is wheelchair bound or bed bound. I know there would be something that we would be able to do. And it's basically like what my mentor was saying about, deal with the cards that you've been dealt. It's just a case of do what you can. So you might be listening to what I'm sharing and be like, that would be nice, but I can't do that. I can't do that. And how many times have I heard that? You would not believe how many times I've heard something like this whilst I was teaching yoga. It's like, oh, you make that look so easy. Oh, I couldn't do that. I couldn't move that way. I couldn't do that pose. I can't, blah, 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 blah. All these stories come up. And a lot of it is that I can remember at primary school being able to do like wheel pose or crab pose without even thinking about it. I didn't even know it was a yoga pose. I was just moving my body in that way. It felt fun. And then I carried on doing that up through secondary school. And there are people like, I can't believe you can do that. And it just kind of made me chuckle. It's been something that's always been in my body. And I noticed, I can't remember what I was focusing on specifically. I know I was doing something for my upper body. And I really noticed the difference when I went into a wheel pose or a crab pose, as people tend to call it. And I felt like I joked because I had no arch. I felt like a flat, like coffee table, because I think I'd over focused on something in my upper body that was causing more tension. I just didn't have that mobility anymore in my shoulders. So it was just noticing that balance. So I wasn't practicing that particular pose in my practice. And I think I had taken it almost for granted without realizing it. It's like, well, I've always been able to do it. But so often I've heard that, oh, I'm not able to do that. Or I don't really want to do yoga because of this, this, this. And they reel off a list of things in their body. But it's doing what works for you. This is why there's chair yoga. There's even yoga in like aqua yoga, which is basically, some sort of very gentle aqua aerobics. It's having that support of the water for your body so you can still move and stretch in particular ways. So it's basically doing what you can, making things accessible. You can do movement whilst you're sitting, but you're just moving your body in slightly different ways. You can tweak it. When we first went into lockdowns, I was like, right, I really want to focus on learning something new with moving my body. And as I've already previously mentioned, I have had an interest for a fair few years now with weight training because I want to build that strength up in my body. I want to know that my body years down the line is going to be strong. And I was looking into resistance bands and I was like, oh, how can I use this for people who do a lot of sitting? So we can do supported strength training in these little short bursts. And how could that be drip fed in? And I was like, oh, you could use your bands like this. And some people have kind of like giggled and shrugged it off. But there are some people that are like, actually, yeah, I can make that work because I do a lot of sitting and then I can do that when I do move. And it's really interesting just taking those little nuggets of how can we use the body we've got in a way that we've got it to still feel really good and strong in our body, because that has this massive effect on our self-esteem and how much we respect our body. Because we can always look at other people. Grass is always greener analogy. We can always look at other people and think, oh, it's all right for them because XYZ. We never really know what's going on because we're just seeing it from our own perspective. So it's always easy to go into that comparison rather than sitting there and thinking, okay, I need to reflect on myself. Where am I at? What story am I telling myself? What can I actually do right now? What's one of my other mentors calls it low hanging fruit. Low hanging fruit is still fruit. Grab the fruit. What's easy to do? What can you do right now? Taking the same analogy with the podcast episode I did a few episodes back now on the hacks of drinking more water. How much are you already drinking compared to how much do you need to aim for? And what's one little hack that you can do to increase it? So, like the example of if you have a half-litre container and you're drinking 3 of those, so 1.5 litres, but you want to aim for the 2. So it's going, okay, so I just need to add 1 more. It's sometimes it can be that easy, that simple to get to the goal. Sometimes it can be that simple as just creating that little bit of movement. If you're someone who has the ability to get up and walk, wear a tracker so you can actually gauge how much you're walking. If we're doing 5,000 steps or less, then how can we work with increasing your movement? And it might be something as simple as initially, where can you use the stairs? Can you get on the bus, a bus stop later? Can you get off a bus stop earlier? Can you park the car slightly further away? So you're doing a little bit more walking. So it's not a huge thing. Let's go for a walk around the block before you go to work. It's where are these little steps that you can quite literally do in your already day-to-day life? How can you make that more accessible? Like with I want to learn the skill, but I don't have the time. Well, could you do it on your lunch break? Could you do it on your commute when you're in the car or on the train or on the bus? Where's the time that you've already got being allocated that could be split with something else or refocused? Like I said, I think it was last week. There are times when mentally I'm like, I just want to watch a movie. And it's like, but I also need to do my yoga practice because I need to move my body or I need to do my weight training. How can I get to a point where I can do both? And then I realize actually what's the priority? I'm really focusing on the movie or I'm really focusing on my movement. And you'll notice what's the actual priority in that moment. And then you can go, okay, I really want to focus on that. So I'm going to just either switch off the movie or I'm really wanting to focus on the movie. So I'm just going to do these little movements as and when I can, just to honor. So I'm still being present because obviously you still want to be mindful. That's most of the time when people get injured when they're doing movement, it's because they're not being 100% present. You might be like, well, Rachel, you've just told me I can watch the movie. But it's also just noticing the type of movement you're doing and how it can work for you. So I know there are some of my students where they'll literally do, say, some sun salutations and they'll go through the motions and they'll be like, oh, I don't even feel like I've done them because they've been more present with something else that was going on at the time. Or they'll suddenly start moving and realize the whole world zones out because you just are completely present. So it's just that invitation to your awareness into what is your current priority for right now. So it's just doing what you can and releasing the shoulds. It should look like this. It should be for this amount of time. I should feel like this afterwards. Like I should feel knackered. I should feel like sweating or whatever if it's movement or, releasing the expectations and just going for it. Create what feels good for you. Go through some of the hacks I've shared and find ways that you can hack the hacks and tweak them so they work for you. So I hope this episode has felt inspirational in the sense that you're like, yeah, actually, I can do something. I'm going to do something. We're a month into 2024 and I'm going to set myself up to succeed in however that works for me.